Okay, good evening. We're going to now deal with Parashat Va'eira. This is Exodus 6, verse 6 and 7. I'll read in English first. Therefore say to the children of Israel, I am Hashem, and I shall take you out from under the burdens of Egypt. I shall rescue you from their service. I shall redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. I shall take you to me for a people, and I shall be a God to you, and you shall know that I am Hashem your God, who takes you out from under the burdens of Egypt. Actually, I want to read 8 as well, at least in the beginning. I shall bring you to the land about which I have raised my hand to give it to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I shall give it to you as a heritage. I am Hashem. In Hebrew, L'chein amar livnei Yisrael. Therefore you should say unto the children of Israel, Ani Hashem, I am the Lord, I am God. V'hotzeisi eschem, and I am going to take you out. Mitachat sivlois Mitzrayim, from underneath the hard burden of Egypt. V'hitzalti eschem me'avodotam, and I will take you out, I will save you from the labor. V'goalti eschem bizro netuyah, and I will redeem you with an outstretched hand and great wonders. And I will take you to me as a people, and I'm going to be to you a God. Now you will know, that's when you're going to know that I'm Lord your God, who've taken you out from underneath the hard work of the burdens of the work of Egypt. And then 8, I'm going to bring you El Haaretz to the land, Asher Nasasi Es Yodi, which I've raised on my hand to give you, the Tetota to the forefathers. Okay. So the Kli Yakar begins, V'hotzesi, V'hitzalti, V'go'alti, V'lekachti. These 4 languages. I will take you out, I will save you, I will redeem you, and I will take you. These are parallel, parallel, arba devarim. These are parallel to 4 things, she'avru aleihem, that transpired to them. These are the 4, let's say, redemptions or salvations parallel to the negatives, the burdens and the afflictions and all the negative things. So these are the remedies. Shenemar. Now it says in Bereshit, in Genesis 15:13. I'll read it in English first. This was the covenant between the parts. And he said to Avram, this is God speaking, know with certainty, this was the promise, that your offspring shall be aliens in a land not their own, and they will serve them and they will oppress them 400 years. Now in Hebrew, 13, Gimel, Yomer la'Avram, Yodoa Teda, you surely know, Ki ger yehiyeh zarecha. Ger is a stranger. Your seed will be a stranger. Be'eretz lo lehem, not theirs, a land not theirs. V'yavadum v'inu otam, and they're going to serve there a very hard work. They will be oppressed 400 years. So here he says, Ki ger yezarecha. Ger, this language of ger is a wanderer, a stranger, will be your seed. Hareza gerus. This is the concept of wandering. That's a hardship. Be'eretz lo lehem, in a land that's not theirs. Harei richuch hashchina, the land that is not theirs. This is very distant from the divine presence. Where's the divine presence found? In Eretz Yisrael, not in the land of Egypt. Ki hadar b'chutz la'aretz, because once you're living in chutz la'aretz, in Gemara Kesubas it says it's doime ki'ilu ein lo Elokai. It's similar to as if you have no intimate relationship with God. V'samach richu chashchina legerus, and there is this proximity in the verses of the distancing of the Shechina to the word or the concept of gerus, of being wanderer. Okay, so that's why you have, it says, Ki ger yezerecha be'eretz lo lahem. It's in one verse, you have both concepts. Ki ha b'hatalia, because each one is really dependent on the other. Sherich uchashchina nimshach min hagerus. The very fact that there's this distance of the divine presence, that comes as a result, a consequence, from being a wanderer, being outside the land. Shukagerim b'chutz la'aretz b'makom rechoch hashchina. They would be like wanderers outside the land, in chutz la'aretz, in a place that's far from the Shekhinah. And the verse went on and said, Va'avadum, right? That the promise back in Genesis 15, verse 13, says that they will be enslaved, that when you have servitude. Zeh hadavar nosaf al gerus. This is something that was placed in addition to the wandering. Ki stam ger eino evid lefachot. Because just a wanderer doesn't make you a slave, right? Slavery is obviously something beyond just being a stranger. And the verse went on and said, V'inu otam, and you will be inflicted. Zedavar nosaf al ha'avdut. This is something even more additional placed upon hard labor. This is affliction. Kistam evid ein ma'anin osam chinam. Because not every slave is afflicted with such horrible, whatever affliction is. It's something that we probably hope we won't know about. So just a regular slave is not necessarily afflicted. Ubahatsala roa kadosh baruch hu lahatzileim bahad-raga ma'at ma'at. And through the saving, when God sought to save us, He saved us in increments, in step-by-step process. Mitchila hitzila min hadavar hamasuchan beyoter. From the very beginning, what He saved us from was that which was most dangerous, most life-threatening. And what is that? V'hu ha'inoi. This would be the affliction. The alav ne'emar, and regarding this, that's the first part of the verse. V'hoseisi eschem mitachas sivlos mitzrayim. That I will take you out from underneath the hardships of the Egyptians. Ki hasvalot hainu inoi. Because those hardships, that was the affliction. Kamosh ne'emar, like it says in the beginning of Shmos in Exodus, Aleph, that's chapter 1, verse 11. Chapter 1, verse 11, this verse is referring to the taxes that was placed on the Jewish people. I'm sorry, I am not in the right place. So they appointed tax collectors over it in order to afflict it with their burdens, to build storage cities for Pharaoh, Pitom, and Ramses. V'yishmu olav sari misim laman anoto b'sivlotam, in order to afflict them with their burdens. So we see that there's a relationship between the word affliction and burden. And afterwards, He saved them also from the hard labor. Right, the verses we're dealing with here. And I saved them, I will save you from the hard labor. And only afterwards He would save us from the most light of all the burdens, which is hagerus, which is being a wanderer. V'al zelmar, and regarding this it says, V'go'alti eschem, I will redeem you. Ki stam ger ein lo goel. Just a regular wanderer, in general, right? Well, I think he's also talking about someone who is even a convert to Judaism, as we'll see in Baka. That's certainly what it's referring to. But let's take it as both. A regular wanderer doesn't have anybody who can redeem him. Kamosh ne'emar, like it says in Bamidbar, when it's talking about a true convert to Judaism, it says ve'ein le'ish goel. This is talking about as someone who doesn't have any heirs. Someone who converts to Judaism is considered like a brand new child, born again, however you want to say it. He has no his relatives. He still has relatives in real life, but they don't have the same halachic relationship that he had with them prior. in terms of Yerusha, in terms of inheritance. So it says, Amru Chazal, Baba Kama Zeh Hager. We're talking about the ger, in this case, of the person who may have passed away, who didn't have any inheritors. So we know we're talking about the wanderer. Once you're under the category and status of a wanderer, you have been removed, or the consequence is the siluk hashchina, the removal of the shchina. Now we know we're not talking about a convert, because the convert comes underneath the wings of the Shekhinah, and they're actually called Ben Avram or Ben Sarah. They're very close to the Shekhinah, so it's just a comparative and for academic use only, not at all, chas v'shalom, that God forbid that we're talking about a convert to Judaism, but we're using the concept of a ger not having a goel, of a redeemer. Ki mitam zeh hutrach lahasmik el gerus mamar be'eretz lo lehem. And for this reason, by necessity, there was this proximity of the concept of the wanderer by Abraham in the promise to the words be'eretz lo lehem, to a land that is not theirs, because that's what a wanderer is. Of course, that is moire al siluk hashchina. That reflects on the removal or the distancing of the Shekhinah, of the divine presence. Lumad zeh amar kan. In spite of this, you know what it says here? Shebebitul hagerus yisku lidibuk hashchina. On account of God removing this wandering, status of wandering, one merits to cling to the Shekhinah. Al za'amar v'lekachti eschem li la'am. As the verse says, and God says, I will take you to be a nation for me, v'item lechem le'elokim, and I will be for you a God. Likuchim mamish, this is an actual taking, just like a husband and wife. A real acquisition, a real purchase, a real unity. Kederech gever ba'alma, just like a man and a woman. V'yan ki hadar b'chutz la'aretz ki ilu ein lo Elokai. And because, on account of the fact that they lived in chutz la'aretz, outside of the land of Israel, it was as if they had no God. Al kein amar kan. That's exactly why it says here, v'yiti lechem le'elokim, and I will be to you a God, as we saw in Baba Kama 105 Aleph. Al yedei dibuk zeh, and through this cleaving, through this union, Yidatem, then you will know, Ki ani hamoti eschem mitachas sivlois Mitzrayim, that I am the Lord, I am the one who took you out from the hard burdens of Egypt. Hagidola shebarois, the hardest of the evils, the worst of the calamities. V'achachach perush l'kuchim elu ba'amru, and it was only afterwards it was explained what this taking is. In this statement, what's verse 8? V'hevesi eschem el haaretz, and I will bring you into the land of Israel, and there's nothing better than that. Al kein tiknu b'pesach arba koisos. That's why the rabbis established during the Seder on Passover that we take 4 cups that are keneged teshua min arba ros elu. These are parallel to the salvations that these salvations parallel the negatives that we had experienced. Well, Amalav Parshas V'yeshev, and he explained already previously in Genesis chapter 40, verse 11, regarding the cup that was in the story of Yosef's dream and his dialogue with the Saramashkim by the steward, the wine steward, Timsa Tam Nachon Ma'od. He mentions over there, you'll find a very good reason, very healthy reason, Al Arba Kosa Shal Pesach, why we take 4 cups of wine on Pesach. Hine Ba'arba Lashono Shel Geula Elu. Now regarding these 4 languages of redemption, Ma Shehiskir Arba Pa'amim Shem Elokim B'Pasuk. He says these relate to what we find 4 times the name of God is mentioned in the verse. If you look in chapter 3, verse 15, Ko Tamar El B'nei Yisrael, Hashem Elokai, there's Elokai Avosechem. This is God speaking to Moses. This is what you're supposed to say to the children of Israel, that the God of Hashem, the God of your forefathers. That's what the first time Elokai is mentioned. Then it says, Elokai Avraham, Elokai Yitzchak, Elokai Yaakov. 3 more times. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Shalachani Elechem has sent me to you. So klalu prat lamali. Why do we have the generality and then the details? Meaning, it's if he already says God of your forefathers, why do you have to then tell me who the forefathers were and mention God 3 more times? Elalomar, rather, it's trying to teach us. Kimin hagerus nitzlu b'schus Avraham. It was on account of the wandering, the status of being a wanderer, that we were saved on account of Abraham. Shalach lo mi'artzo u'milarato u'mibeis aviv el eretz nachriya, and that he went from his own land and from his birthplace and from father's house to a strange land. B'schus avodah shel Yitzchak, and in the merit of the service of Yitzchak, Shenekar al gavim mizbeach la'avodas Hashem, that he was put up and bound onto the altar to serve God. Nitzlu me'avodas Mitzrayim, we were saved from the harsh slavery. The word avodah, of service or worship, is the same word for slavery. Kli Yakar Ex, and in the merit of Yaakov, who carried with him, who carried the burden of the afflictions all of his life, Nitzlu mi'inoi Mitzrayim, we were saved from the affliction of Egypt. But regards to the concept of the cleaving, to the intimate relationship to God, all of the forefathers were equal in the same level. Al kain klolim yachad. Therefore, they were all grouped together. The Amar el Kavosechem, as it says, the God of your forefathers. And on account of the merit of all of them, we merited to cling to the divine presence. This is a very deep subject here. When it says, God says, I'm going to save you from their burden, from their labor. Remember, we said that the word also relates to avodah, is the service or worship. Hainu min mazal tleh, meaning from the zodiac sign of Aries. Not just a sign, but the whole concept that the ram was one of the deities of Egypt. Asher olav avdu mitzri. So the Egyptians served the ram, the adult goat. How do we know this? So Yosef, he conferred to the brothers when they came down to Egypt. He says, this is what you need to tell Pharaoh when he asks you, what do you guys do for a living? Of course, nice Jewish boys, expects to hear you're doctors or lawyers, but you're going to tell them that you're shepherds. And why should you do that? Because, the pasuk goes on and says, because it's an abomination in their eyes. Obviously, why would being a shepherd be an abomination in the eyes of the Egyptians? And what was the goal? Yosef wanted to try to prevent intermarriage. He wanted to seclude the Jewish people away in a land called Goshen, where they could shepherd. So he says, tell them you're shepherds, and this way they'll give us this nice pasture land to pasture our sheep, and we won't intermarry because we won't really have anything to do with them. We'll be far away from the city center, and we'll do our own thing. We'll study Torah, we'll worship Hashem, and we'll do what we need to do as Jews. So the tleh, the ram, the sheep in that case, was the deity. So Ratzolomar, what he means to say when it says, God says, I'm going to save you from their avodah, min alahut shalehem, save you from their gods, from worshiping their gods, the hainu avodatam, that you will not have to worship their gods. God saved us from sin. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so that's it.